Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you've recently tried taking a stunning extreme close-up with a brand new top-of-the-line smartphone, you've probably hit a seriously frustrating wall. Today, we're diving right into photographer Ang's recent field notes to uncover exactly why modern phone cameras are suddenly struggling so hard with macro photography, and, more importantly, how you can actually beat those limits. Let's get right into it.
So, why are your extreme close-ups suddenly coming out totally blurry? Look, it's a shared frustration, right? We've all been there. You drop a ton of cash on a wildly expensive device, you spot something tiny, maybe a cool bug or a water droplet, you move in super close, and it's just an out-of-focus mess. You're tapping the screen relentlessly, but it flat out refuses to lock in. Well, Ang's notes beautifully decode exactly what's going on under the hood here.
The root of the problem basically boils down to a massive hardware shift in the industry. Think back to older phones. They frequently included these dedicated tiny macro lenses built specifically for extreme close-ups. But recently, manufacturers completely shifted their priorities. They basically ditched those dedicated macro lenses in favor of massive primary sensors and really advanced general zoom capabilities. And here's the catch with that. Because these modern phones pack such massive sensors, they are absolutely incredible at capturing light and detail. But physics has a cost, and that cost is a remarkably shallow depth of field. The actual slice of the image that remains in sharp focus is literally paper thin. So when you get right up in a subject's face, that thin focal plane causes everything to just appear soft and fundamentally out of focus. It's not a software glitch, you know? It is quite literally just physics at work.
Which brings us to a magic and honestly incredibly frustrating number, 30. Ang's notes point out a hard physical limitation here. Modern main lenses have a minimum focusing range of right around 30 centimeters. That means you physically cannot lock focus any closer than that. You can tap that glass all you want, but if you're closer than 30 centimeters, the physical lens mechanism simply cannot accommodate it.
So what's the crucial takeaway here? Honestly, we just have to stop forcing our phones to act like microscopes. Ang playfully points out that we really need to change our muscle memory here. Moving closer is actually making your shot worse. In fact, if you pay attention, modern camera software will often literally flash a prompt on the screen telling you to move back. We've kind of got to swallow our pride, listen to the software when it tells us to back up, and just respect the hardware. Okay, so if you physically can't get close, what do you do instead? Well, you use what Ang brilliantly calls the zoom sweet spot. You step back, respecting that strict 30-centimeter boundary we just talked about, and then you utilize your 2x or 5x optical zoom. By relying on that optical zoom from a perfectly safe distance, you effortlessly replicate that dramatic macro effect, but you keep your subject absolutely crisp and dialed in. It's a total game changer.
But a quick warning, there is definitely a trap here. Optical zoom at 2x or 5x uses the actual physical glass, which keeps things pristine. But Ang warns strongly against pushing into that 10x hybrid zoom territory and beyond. At 10x, the software starts mixing optical with digital zoom. That means the absolute slightest tremor in your hand gets digitally amplified. People are constantly mistaking this smudgy motion blur for a focusing error, when in reality, it's just digital shake.
To combat that amplified shake, Ang outlines this great little trick called the elbow lock technique. You're essentially turning your body into a human tripod. You tuck your elbows tightly into your ribs, exhale slowly to steady your core, and gently tap the shutter. Although, Ang does add a pretty funny but totally realistic caveat here. Even with this tactical, sniper-like stance, literally just reaching your finger out to tap the glass screen can introduce enough shake to make getting the shot quite challenging. And then, of course, there's the software side of things. As Ang explicitly notes, these automatic AI and macro modes tend to wildly overprocess the final image with overly opinionated, quote-unquote, sensible defaults. I mean, you've probably seen this happen on your own phone. You take a photo, it looks okay in the viewfinder, and then a second later, the software aggressively sharpens the edges, crinks the colors way up, and completely ruins the natural aesthetic of your close-up. To escape that annoying AI trap, Ang recommends a simple, yet wildly powerful escape hatch, and that is Pro Mode. By switching your phone into Pro Mode, you bypass all those overbearing automatic edits. You take back complete manual control over your focus. And, most importantly, you stop the phone from heavily processing the final image. You actually get to capture exactly what your eyes are seeing. Imagine that. Ultimately, truly understanding these limitations completely changes how we view these pocket-sized computers. Because of those massive new sensors and the absolute lack of a dedicated macro lens, modern phones just aren't really meant for capturing tiny bugs or delicate flower petals anymore. Instead, their true superpowers lie in much wider environments. This makes them absolutely phenomenal tools for street photography and architecture photography, where they can just gorgeously capture tons of light and natural depth.
Which leaves us with this final thought for the explainer. Now that you know for a fact your brand new phone isn't a microscope, and you actually understand the strict physics behind that 30-centimeter rule, how are you going to adapt? Instead of endlessly fighting the hardware, what vibrant street scenes or striking, moody architecture are you going to capture on your next photo walk? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time as we continue unpacking the most fascinating insights out there.